Don't suspect that there's any cracks here, but we just want to make sure. Okay, here we go. And then groove this completely out, and then probably weld those holes through to the back plate. Comes off better just dusting it off than anything, really. Hey guys, it's Mike from Missouri. Well, finally back with another video. I want to show you what's taken me so long to get these videos out. Turns out I'm having to do a lot of things over. Past video, I completely cleaned this all down with a pressure washer and sprayed some concrete etch metal prep on it. And brought it in here, came back a few days later, and the whole thing was just rusty, really, really rusty. I ended up sanding these pillars down and getting this down to pretty much bare metal again after I did some body work, which I showed you in the prior video. But I left the rest of it because just getting down in all these crevices was going to take forever. So I researched a product called Ospho, which mostly have good reviews, and it converts the rust to from iron oxide to iron phosphate. That's what the black is. But really, I was concerned about the really chalky stuff that phosphoric acid was leaving, that just plain concrete etch. And honestly, my opinion of that stuff is terrible. So far, this Ospho really doesn't create any of that chalky appearance, and I'm really happy with the way this turned out. Let me show you what I was using and what I switched to. Depending on how this test I'm going to show you I'm doing turns out, depends on what I'm going to prime this with. But let me show you what I'm doing. So this is the product I was using, and because everyone said it was the same thing as this, let me tell you, this is not the same thing, not even close. Yes, both of them have phosphoric acid, but when you clean your metal with this, it does eat all the rust. And when you wash it off, it leaves all kinds of chalky white powder, and it, to me, is just as much of a problem as probably the surface rust. This stuff, which if you follow the directions, says to spray it on and then you let it dry on the surface for 24 hours. And a lot of people have varying opinions of that, of whether that's a good thing or not. But I'm here to tell you there was almost no chalkiness after using this, and it stayed wet for a really long time, allowing you to get a nice even coat. I'm doing a test. I got this spaced out here. And this is no prep, and the rest of this has been cleaned with mineral spirits like it says. And then I'm going to try to use a water-based primer, which is not really recommended, but I'm using a commercial, pretty expensive Pro-Krill. It's a pro-industrial product. I'm going to use an alkaline cleaner after the mineral spirits to get any residue off. So I'm going to use that LA's Awesome Cleaner. Probably similar to Simple Green or Purple Power, those types of products. And then I'm going to use the primer, then I'm going to use my top coat with no primer, and just see the adhesion performance before I go and put it on the machine. Okay, I'm going to do some of the top coat only. Let's see. I'm going to do it here because this is where I didn't do that LA's Awesome Cleaner. All right, then we're going to do the water-based primer right here. And over here has been no prep whatsoever. And this one I'm going to do primer and a top coat over it. And then this one, I took a light Scotch-Brite to it after I did mineral spirits and that alkaline-based cleaner. All right, it's been about a week since I've painted this test sample, and then this Bondo's been on there about 20 hours, so we're gonna try to chisel this off and see if it made a difference with the Ospho or not, and whether you use primer or water-based. Well, I got some pretty interesting results here. The no prep with the water-based primer failed. All the primer came off. These three were cleaned with mineral spirits and the alkaline-based cleaner, and this one had the water-based primer and the top coat. It did better, but from what I can see, the failure areas are because of the water-based primer let loose. The one that did best was the one that had the top coat directly on, but I also used Scotch-Brite pad. This one just got wiped down with, not mineral spirits, but similar, mineral spirits. And this one got mineral spirits and the alkaline with only the primer. So of all the chips that came off, the primer pulled loose. I don't have any chips really where the top coat really came loose. Some of this is just the chisel digging in. So that tells me I do not want to use the water-based primer over the top of Ospho, which is pretty much what Ospho has to say about it. Well, I think it's been about 3 weeks since I put this Ospho on here. And now I'm doing the worst part of the whole thing, at least in my opinion. It says to use scouring pad and the mineral spirits on the whole thing. So that's what I'm gonna do. I think I mentioned before that this whole project's really kind of slowed down, and just my YouTube channel frequency of posting is slowed as well, and that's simply I just couldn't keep up with getting up in the mornings and doing this every morning at 5 a.m. It was really getting to me, so I had to back down to just a few times in the evening and maybe a few hours on the weekend. But nonetheless, I'll still put out some content, just at a slower pace. It's also given me a little more time to get parts gathered up and not be so stressed about having the parts I needed. I'm going to continue on with this, and I'll bring you guys back when I get towards the end. Tell you what, this is fun. Well, guys, it's 3 hours later. I'm finally done. 2 full rolls of shop towels, 2 things of mineral spirits, but she's looking nice. Let me show you. So I Scotch-Brite pad and mineral spirits over the entire thing. Then I went back and wiped the whole thing down with mineral spirits and keep getting clean new rags until all the discoloration was coming up, and it was all all coming up clean. I kept going over and over and over it. I not wet sanded, but I sanded back some of this primer again. And then I took a blowgun and blew the whole thing down here to get any lint, dust. So it is 100% ready to paint. And I did decide to go ahead and put a primer on it, even though my adhesive test showed the top coat seemed to be fine. But I went and bought some Oleum oil-based gray primer, and I'm going to go over the whole thing with that. And then let that dry, and I'll go 2 coats with the top coat. So hopefully tomorrow I'll be back onto this thing and we can get some primer put on it. Well, it's the following day. Finally getting some primer on this thing. Here's what I decided to go with. Well, you can't see the label. It's Oleum oil based. Well, this is where I stopped at. Got the whole inside done. And then basically all of the outside underneath except for the sides here. And I'm going to put the axles in before I do this because this gets silicone or form-in-place gasket along here, and I don't think paint and that gasket maker plays nice with each other. So I'm going to get the axles installed, then we'll finish the priming. I'm going to give these chain cases a final wipe down inside. I've washed this out many times since I've sandblasted, and there's really not any sand, but just kind of being open in the shop, I felt some small debris in there. I think cleanliness is a very important factor when working on machinery, and a lot of people are sloppy with it. Causes issues. This area is being they're just chains and sprockets are sure a lot more forgiving than like an engine with tolerance to bearings and things of that nature, but I still want it clean. Sounds like the hen in the background is laying an egg. The other thing I need to do before I enclose this side, I need to make sure these parking brake sleeves or bores are clean. All that junk would have went in the chain case. I'm going to test fit the pins just to make sure they slide smooth. All right, should be good. I'm also going to get these studs back in. Both of these were loose and came out pretty easily, so I'm going to use some Loctite thread, not thread, but retaining compound before I pull them in. Okay, had to unplug the bottle. Should do it. Well guys, I think 2 videos ago, I worked on the left front hub, disassembled, put new bearings in it. Well, I'm doing every single one. I'm only on my second one. Got this all sandblasted. Everything checks out on the splines and the threads. I don't like the seal surface here. One, I got some of my sandblaster on it, which roughs it up. It's not good, but it's got a little bit of grooving, pretty minor. I'm gonna chuck this up on the lathe and smooth that out a little bit. You don't wanna get too aggressive with this, because if you get the outside diameter too small, the seal isn't gonna have enough tension, but there's a little bit of leeway. I think we can take some off and still be okay. Okay, I'm over here on my Hendy lathe. Not quite, this 3 jaw is pretty small. It's not quite big enough to go all the way through the throat of it, so this is gonna have to be good enough. But I'm just gonna use this to spin it while I polish this surface. Starting off with 120 grit. Give it a little bit more. All right, now moving to a 220. And then finally, around a 300 grit is about where you want for a seal. Believe it or not, you can have too smooth of a surface. You don't want to use like 1,000 grit or 2,000 grit sandpaper. You don't want it too rough either. There's something called a RA. It's like a surface finish value. You can look up and see what the desired surface finish is for an oil seal. I believe it to be right around the 300 grit sandpaper. This is 320. It's not perfect, but it's going to have to be good enough. Get this out of here. All right, got my bearing kit here from Case. I'm going to go ahead and build this housing and the other 2 off camera. If you want to see how it's done, you can go back and check some of my other videos. Finally, on my last one here. Got the sprocket all cleaned up, kind of took the burrs off with a file. Didn't really take any metal off, I just cleaned it up a little bit. Feels good to have that all done. Putting them in a plastic bag here so they don't get dusty. All right, got all 4 of them here, tagged and ready to go. Probably less than a week out, start installing those. Left front axle. Okay, so when you install these axle housings, you gotta, like I mentioned, use this gasket maker on this piece to the frame. Now the O-ring under here allows you to slide it back and forth on the back side of the surface. This plate stays stationary. The trick is to get the chain in there and everything on without messing up the sealing around here. So I'm going to take the chain that I have oiled up, cleaned and oiled, put it on here, try to slide it in. I'm not sure if I should put it on. I think I should put the silicone on right away before I try to do that. And then I hope I can slide this back far enough and this one far enough to get the center sprocket on. Otherwise, I'm going to have to take it back out, but I'm pretty sure that'll work. I need to get as much of this residue off this chain, oil residue, so I don't slop it all over the frame. This is the one that came off of this axle, and I have it marked on which side was facing out to try to keep everything that's worn in together in the same place. Not sure how much that really matters, but can't hurt anything. Now I could put the chain in here and then try to get it on, but in my experience, that's pretty difficult. Well, I don't have a lot of experience with it, but getting them in and out, it seemed like it wanted to come out with it on the sprocket. I'm wondering whether I should try to get it up in there and kind of sitting in place and then seal it after. That way I can clean up any oil that gets on here, because inevitably there's going to be oil on there, but there's just not a lot of room. Now I kind of wish I didn't oil these, but I didn't want them to rust either. I think I'm going to set it up there and to see how much clearance I have, whether I can get in there and clean and oil it after it's in. Can't get it back out. Changing. See if I can get the chain on after. A ring fell down. Yeah, it's below the stud to take that back loose. Man, what a pain. All right. I don't even know if I can get the chain on it now. So it is possible to get the axle housing on and then the chain off on after, but you gotta kind of hold it up and tilt it, and it's not easy, but it's on there. That's the left rear housing. Okay, left rear chain. This is the outer, okay. I think this one will be easier because the sprocket is further away. Easier to get on. Let's see if I can get the chain on it now. It's almost on. There we go. It's on. Now, the big question. Can I get that center cluster or center sprocket in there if I slide both axles this way? No problem at all. Plenty of room. Now, I got it on right. There we go. Now I gotta clean the area behind the axles again because I'm sure I got oil. Get the O-rings in place and get them glued up. I'm going to use some mineral spirits, try to get back behind there. get the bottom, it'll probably be good enough. Feel pretty good about that. I gotta get the O-ring back into place. Get this bolted down. Once that's set up, we can loosen this outer hub and slide it back and forth. I'm going to go ahead and torque these. I guess I had a little 72 is what the manual says. Yeah. All right, well that silicone is set up, and then we'll scrape the residue off. I think it'll be better than trying to smear it around right now. Of all times, I don't wear my rubber gloves. It just keeps flopping. There, I think I finally have it. Yeah, I'm not proud of the mess. This is that silicone-based gasket maker, and it is not fun to work with. All right. what a pain in the you-know-what. And that is crazy embarrassing with all the slopping around I did. I'm going to let it all dry. I'm going to get some new silicone and then come back and clean that all up. Wow, that really stinks. Well, I grabbed some lunch, took a little break, came back out. It's been 4 or 5 hours. I got all that sloppy FIPG gasket maker cleaned off, this whole area wiped down. So this is ready to paint. I forgot to clean these nuts up like I did here with the wire brush, so I'm going to take those off one at a time and clean those up. But I want to do both sides at once when I paint this. I ran into not really a problem, but went ahead and got this one put on off camera because you guys saw me fighting with them enough. Same process, really had no issues with that. However, I saw the other day that there's something going on with this front chain. Let me show you. So this is the front chain out of the right front, and if you notice right here is a master link. Now these are supposed to be endless, and I was just going to roll with that, but after checking the price, about 130 bucks, and fighting with this and how much of a pain this is to put together, I don't want to go back in here, so I'm going to buy a new one, which is going to put me a few days out from finishing this, but I'm going to go ahead and post this video because really all I need to do is put this axle on and prime it, and that's where I'm going to end. Next video, I'm going to start diving into the hydraulic motors. This one has got the shaft scored on the end. So that's going to be the next video. So if you guys like what I'm doing here, I'd really appreciate if you went down below and gave me a thumbs up and comment. It really helps out the YouTube algorithm. And also, if you think what I'm doing is truly awesome and you want to help me out in a more direct way, check out the super thanks function down in the comments. I would greatly appreciate it. We'll see you on the next one. Take care.